Okay, so I know what it's like to be a beginner in calisthenics. It can be really off-putting, to be honest with you. There's a lot of challenges. It can seem like you're often not making any progress, and it's pretty damn hard. So in today's video, I'm going to take you through some of my top tips or things that maybe you should know when you're starting calisthenics. Now, just in case you haven't met me before, my name is Lucy and I'm a personal trainer who specialises, and not only specialises, but also has a huge passion for calisthenics. And if you haven't heard of calisthenics before, it's basically bodyweight exercise. So calisthenics will encompass all things such as standing up off your sofa and doing a bodyweight squat, or doing a front lever, human flag, or muscle up. Alright, so I have come up with 7 of my top tips, and I'm going to get straight into it with number 1, which is time frames. Now, with calisthenics, it takes a long time to see progress, and I mean a really long time, frustratingly long time, so long that you often will think that you're not going to make any progress. Now, calisthenics skills, no matter which level you're at, can take anywhere from 6 to 24 months to master. Honestly, the progress is really slow. Now, if you take learning a push-up, for example, and think about the time frame of 6 to 24 months, you are going to be seeing so little progress day in, day out, or week on week, that it's probably negligible, or you're not going to really notice it, which often leaves you thinking that it's just not working, you're actually never going to get there. And the other thing is that progress is often subjective, because you don't actually have any sort of hard data to back up that you are making progress. What I mean by this is that if you went into the gym and went to do a shoulder press or a bicep curl, and you could lift, let's say, 5 kilos in each hand, then maybe in a week or 2 you might be able to lift 6 kilos or 7 kilos. So you can see that you've added weight, therefore you have made progress. But with calisthenics, because you're using your body weight, you haven't got that numerical value or that data point to suggest that you're making progress. So you have to rely on things that you can actually measure, or your opinion, which obviously is going to fluctuate depending on how you feel at the time. Seeing progress with a calisthenics exercise could be as little as literally being able to hold a tuck for half a second or a second longer than you had the week before. It's excruciating, but it's also part of the journey. And so it's just about being aware of these time frames and knowing that what you do consistently will pay off in the long run. You just have to keep chipping away at it, and more importantly, trust the process. But to do that, it's also important that you have fun, which is going to be one of the points a little bit later. So just to give you a bit of an idea in my own experience and how long it took me to learn certain movements, to learn how to do a push-up for the first time, it took me a good 8 or 9 months to be able to do that first one, and my form was pretty rubbish, to be honest with you. So that was a good amount of time, and it's still been several years, and I'm working on perfecting my form and learning different variations. It's just a never-ending journey, which is an amazing thing. Handstands, that took me, well, I've been doing them for about 4 or 5 years now, and I still have so much to learn. But to be able to actually control and hold a handstand for maybe 5-10 seconds took at least 2 to 3 years for me to learn. So it was a long process, but again, I just had fun along the way, so it wasn't too bad. And then learning a chin-up or a pull-up, that took well over a year just to be able to do one. And again, there's been a fluctuating journey ever since. I've had a few injuries and some periods where I haven't trained as much, and then the process always starts again. There is that muscle memory there, so getting back to where I was strength-wise is always quite quick, but it is a very frustrating and excruciatingly slow progress in comparison to being able to go and like throw some dumbbells around in the gym. So I'm not trying to put you off. In fact, I would very much encourage everyone to be learning these skills. What you just need to do is know that it will pay off in the long run, so just keep chipping away at it and enjoy the process. And that takes us nicely on to point number 2, which is learn the basics. So there are a certain set of movements and exercises within calisthenics that form the basis of all the progressions. So all the crazy, cool, gravity-defying tricks that you see are usually based upon fundamental skills that people learn and master. So within calisthenics, there's 5, maybe we could say 6 exercises that should really always be a part of your routine. And those are push-ups, pull-ups, dips, a core exercise or a hip hinge, like a hollow body or an L-sit, a squat for your lower body, and also we could say a glute bridge, which is for your posterior chain and also your butt, your glutes. So with those movements, we're hitting push, pull, lower body and core as well. So if you start to focus on being able to get to around 8 to 10 reps of each exercise with good form, you can then start to branch out and try different things, but you'll have that baseline strength that will always help you out. Always focus on form over reps. So it would be much more beneficial to be able to do an exercise with perfect form, but only be able to do 2 or 3 reps of the exercise versus being able to do 15 to 20 reps, but with poor form. Obviously, if you don't have the right form, then you're probably not recruiting all the right muscle groups. You're not going to be getting the maximum benefit from the exercise. And also you could get injured, and that's something that we really want to avoid. Okay, point number 3 is you do not need equipment. The only equipment you need is your body, which is amazing. How good is that? You basically have your gym with you everywhere you go. You don't need a gym membership. You do not need any at-home equipment. You can have some if you want, but you don't need to go out when you're starting and start spending money on things just to get set up. You can literally just get stuck in with your body alone. To be honest with you, in my experience, one of the most beneficial things that you could probably spend your money on is getting some comfy activewear and just feeling comfortable. So if you ever see me, 95, actually probably more like 99% of the time, I'll be wearing my Lululemon Align leggings. And that is just because they are so soft and thin that they give me that flexibility and the movement that's required in calisthenics. And I honestly don't feel like I'm really wearing any leggings, so I don't feel restricted. And to me, that is such a good use of my money. When my body is my gym, I can essentially feel so comfortable with what I'm wearing that I can actually just focus on having fun and enjoying my training. Other than that, obviously a pull-up bar is going to be useful if you want to learn how to do pull-ups, and pull-ups are a really fundamental exercise in calisthenics, but you don't have to get anything fancy. I started with a $20 one from Kmart and I just hung it over my door in my bedroom, and it was fantastic, and I literally just hung on it every time I walked past. I now have a squat rack with a pull-up bar, and I often get so many questions where it's from. I bought it on Amazon about a year and a half ago, but I don't think they sell them anymore. However, if you do go on Amazon, search for a pull-up bar squat rack, loads come up. If you just check the reviews, I'm sure you'll be able to find one that works perfectly for you. So those are really good investments if you want to get into calisthenics, but honestly, other than that, the rest of it is just optional. So you could always get mini parallettes. Obviously, one day you could get rings as well, but these are by no means required. Even adding external weight to an exercise, you can literally just use things around your house. And that's exactly what I did when I started. The last thing in terms of equipment that you might find beneficial, but again, it's so cheap, is resistance bands. So getting the long looped resistance bands could be a good option. You can usually buy them in sets of 3, and you can use them for warm-ups, you can use them to make exercises easier and exercises harder. So having those around might be useful. But at the end of the day, all you need is you. Now, because you're using your body as the resistance, it's really beneficial when you're starting out to learn how to progress and regress exercises. And that way you can sort of intuitively train and change exercises to work to your level. So again, to liken it to the gym, if you wanted to make an exercise harder, you would increase the weight often. And if you wanted to make an exercise easier, then you can just decrease the weight. Now, using your body weight, obviously, you can't as easily just take weight off, or you can't necessarily just add weight on if you don't have any at home. So there's other techniques and other things that we will use to make exercises easier or harder. So if you do a little bit of research on this, you will find so much information, and honestly, as you start to train, you'll start to pick these things up naturally. If you do want me to make a separate video on how to progress or regress exercises within calisthenics, I'm more than happy to make one. But essentially we would use things like levers, time under tension, changing the tempo of an exercise, changing the actual exercise itself, or we could add some external weight if we have some. Once you know how to progress or regress exercises within calisthenics, you can then look at any skill and be able to adapt it to whatever your level is at the moment. For example, if you wanted to learn how to do pistol squats, you could do a negative pistol squat, you could do a supported one where you have your hands on rings or on a bar or a wall, you could do a single leg box squat, you could do a single leg RDL, or you could simply just learn how to squat comfortably with both legs and balance on one leg. There is literally a way to progress or regress every single exercise. So it doesn't matter what level you're at, what body weight you have, what experience you have, there is something that you will be able to do. All right, point number 4 is get flexy and get mobile. Now, I don't know why I'm saying this because it feels very hypocritical of me to say go and work on your flexibility and your mobility, but it is really, really important and beneficial for calisthenics training, that is for sure. Honestly, it's something I have a total love-hate relationship with. So you may be asking what the difference is between mobility and flexibility, because they're often used a bit interchangeably, or you hear them in the same sentences. So essentially, mobility is referring to your joints and the ability to move a joint through its entire range of motion actively, so with control. Whereas flexibility is referring more to it passively, so how far can that actually be pushed with an external force, person pushing it or you pushing it. Now, calisthenics is notoriously hard on your joints. It's very, very difficult to isolate a particular muscle doing calisthenics. So that means that most of the movements are compound movements, multi-joint, multi-muscle, big muscle group movements. Not only that, but having good mobility will help you immeasurably with so many exercises that you will go on to learn. So for example, with handstands, having good shoulder mobility is really, really beneficial. If you want to learn pistol squats, having good ankle mobility is going to be useful. So while it may be tempting to skip out on the mobility or the flexibility work, because let's face it, it's a little bit boring, it is really, really beneficial. It will help you move better, it will help you with your skills, and more importantly, it will help minimize the risk of injury. And we definitely don't want to be getting injured. And that very nicely leads on to my next point, which is hands and wrists. Now, this is something that I hear all the time and I totally can relate to, and that is my wrists are really sore when I started calisthenics, or my hands are really sore, and how do you deal with that? Firstly, it is normal to have really sore hands when you start, and even if you take a week or two's break and go back to it, you'll notice that your hands are probably the first to bear the brunt of the pain. So one word of comfort is that it will get better. Your wrists and your hands will toughen up and get stronger over time, and so the pain will minimize. And it is normal to experience some wrist discomfort, especially when you're starting out. But honestly, if I have a big handstanding session or a big cali session, my wrists are so sore afterwards that it can take a good 12-24 hours before they start to feel good again. So while it is normal, obviously there is a limit where you're going to be injuring your wrists, and you don't want to get to that point. So to make sure that that doesn't happen, make sure you do a nice, simple, easy wrist warm-up before every single session. Like, I would recommend it every single day. In terms of wrist pain, there's a couple of different options that you can explore. So like I said, they will get stronger over time, so you can just grit your teeth and bear it and start to build up that strength. But in the meantime, you might find that it's actually preventing you from doing exercises that you want. So what you could potentially do is buy wrist wraps. I'm not a huge fan of this because it basically takes the brunt off your wrists, and they will start to become reliant on that, and they just won't get stronger. So that's an option if you're really struggling with wrist pain and it's preventing you from doing exercises. But alternatively, a really good option is to use mini parallettes or to use just dumbbells. By switching from having your hands in that wrist extension position to having them on a dumbbell in this position, what you're doing is putting your wrist in a natural stacked position, which is going to be a lot more comfortable and a lot less demanding. Now, you can do this with nearly any exercise that you're going to use your wrists, so that could be planks, push-ups, dips, or even handstands. By using this method, you'll still be able to build up strength in your wrists, but alongside that, you'll be able to train at the same time. So it's a win-win. I would definitely suggest trying to do a bit of a mixture. So make sure you're doing some wrist extension work anyway. Make sure you're warming up your wrists, and you always have the option to use dumbbells or mini parallettes if you wanted to. Finally, you can always do wrist strengthening exercises. So you can just grab yourself a light dumbbell and you can just start working on building up wrist strength and grip strength as well. And that takes us onto hands. If you've ever hung on a bar for more than about 3 seconds, you'll know it hurts. It not only hurts your whole body and your forearms mainly, but your hands will be so sore. Now again, over time, your hands will get stronger, and that will be because you will form calluses. Now, I know that's a scary word for especially a lot of women. I get a lot of questions about calluses. I have calluses, but honestly, they just don't really bother me that much. I'm gonna show you, see if you can see what it looks like. So I have them here, and they're quite big at the moment because I also do a lot of rock climbing. So I don't do anything to mine, and this is like years. I don't moisturize. There's people that file them and shave them, however horrible that sounds. There's people that wear gloves to protect their hands. I don't do any of that, and this is what they're like. I find them very useful, and I notice that when I don't train for a little while, my hands become a lot softer, they minimize or even go away. And when I get back into training, I have to start building it up again to really give myself the ability to push through the endurance of being able to do exercise. So there is the option that you can buy the little exercise gloves. They usually are fingerless, and you'll find that they'll protect your hands, stop you from getting calluses, and they'll also give you a little bit of a boost in terms of grip strength. I'm personally just not really a fan. I find them a little bit uncomfortable to wear, and if your hands get sweaty and hot, I find that actually I have worse grip strength because the gloves start to slip off my hands. So for me, I would rather just build up the strength in my hands and that endurance, and also the skin. To actually look after calluses or to minimize them, make sure that you moisturize your hands often. And like I say, if you just Google a few, everyone has a different technique. There is actually products out there to look after them and minimize them. But like I mentioned, some people will file them down or shave them to keep them lower. You don't want to let them get too big, because if you've ever seen a gymnast, I mean, I've done this a few times as well, if they get really sweaty hands and they're on a bar, they can rip, and there is nothing worse than trying to wash your hair in the shower with wounds on your hands that just won't heal. Oh, it makes my skin crawl just thinking about it. But we've all been there, and it happens. Finally, I would highly recommend that you get hold of some chalk. It's literally like $1 or $2. You can get it in the sports stores, you can just order it online, but it's super beneficial to help increase your grip strength. You will feel superhuman as soon as you have chalk on your hands. It's like what you can do on the bar is doubled when you have chalk on your hands. If, and this might sound a little bit gross, you're in a position where you don't have any chalk, maybe you're at the park and you have nothing, but it's a hot day, I used to just rub my hands in the dirt or in the grass, and the grit from that will give you enough grip on the bar to be able to do the exercise. So, you know, calisthenics is all about really getting stuck in, getting chalky, grimy, sweaty, and just enjoying the moment. So don't worry about a little bit of mud. All right, so we're nearly there. My next point is, don't compare yourselves to others. I feel like this is a really common thread through every single video, but I really don't want you to ever compare yourselves to anyone else, because you are doing a fantastic job, and comparison is honestly the thief of joy. The thing about calisthenics is whatever level you're at, whether you are really good and you're learning how to do back levers, front levers, human flags, whatever it might be, or whether you are starting out and you've never done calisthenics before and you're learning how to do one incline push-up or a bodyweight squat, the effort that you're putting in is relative. So somebody who is learning those higher end skills is working just as hard as the beginner is. And trust me when I say those people can appreciate just how hard the beginners are working as well. And what's very humbling about calisthenics as well is that just because somebody seems to be doing something that's really challenging, they will remember what it's like to learn how to do that first pull-up or that first push-up. Whether they're a man or a woman, everybody has been in that same position, and they know the excruciating pain and hard work that goes into getting that first rep. They know the dedication, and they will never be judging you. There are people that I look at that are doing amazing movements, but they have worked and grinded away for years and years and years. And if you've ever seen somebody achieve or unlock a skill in calisthenics for the first time, regardless of what that skill is, the elation on their face says it all. Trust me, I cried the first time I did a muscle up, and it is, or they still are, awful, like the worst muscle ups you've ever seen. But I came home and blubbered like a baby. Oh, I actually feel it right now, but I just know that I literally worked for years and years and years just to get to that point. And I know one day I will look back and absolutely cringe at it and think, oh, that was such bad form, just like I do with so many of the things I've done. But the point is that I did it, and the work that went into it was so worthwhile when you finally unlock that. So everybody can relate to the feeling of struggling and having to put this effort in for months on end without seeing much feedback or progress. And then when they finally get that, they know the feeling as well. So if you start calisthenics, don't ever look at somebody else and think that they're judging you or think worse of you because you're trying to learn how to do something that's for them a warm-up. Because trust me, I remember hearing the quote, "What you find impossible now, one day will be your warm-up." And I was like, no way. Like, I couldn't do scapular shrugs. I couldn't even hang on a bar for more than 2 or 3 seconds. And I was like, there's no way this is ever gonna get easier. And of course, I could do that now for a couple of minutes if I I had to. I don't know if I'd want to, but I could. Everyone has come from the same starting place. Nobody was born being able to do a handstand or doing push-ups. And so that's what really makes calisthenics and the calisthenics community a really inclusive and lovely and amazing place to be. And if you ever feel like comparing yourself or that you're not doing a good job or that you're struggling, just message me, because I have so many stories about myself that will make you feel a lot better. And that's to my last point, and you guessed it, it's the most important one: have fun. Calisthenics is about being able to move well, to being able to enjoy your body and being able to push its boundaries, see what your limits are, try new things, and just have fun. It's going to be a long journey if you want to learn certain skills, so you may as well enjoy the ride. And as much as I say, yeah, learn the basics and, you know, look after your mobility and flexibility, of course these things are important, but the most important thing is that you find the enjoyment in it and that you enjoy what you're doing. Learn to love what your body is capable of doing. And sometimes, like I said, it might not feel like it can do a lot, but it will get easier. And when you can finally unlock something for the first time, honestly, I cannot tell you how amazing it feels. So just work towards that in the most fun and you way possible. Like, make this your training. You don't need to train the way anyone else does. That is what is so beautiful about calisthenics. Like, you literally can do anything. I do some of the most ridiculous things, and as you guys know, I very rarely follow a specific program. Sometimes I will for the basics, but other than that, I just do what I want when I want. And I still have made so much progress and have had a lot of fun along the way. So if you see me or somebody else doing something that you don't think you can do, just give it a go. Go into your room and make up some choreography and try doing some sort of dynamic yoga / bodyweight exercise. It doesn't even have to have a name to it. Just have a little bit of fun, record what you do, laugh at yourself, enjoy the fails, learn from the process, and try and get other people involved in it as well. It's honestly such an amazing way to train. Right, I'm gonna go before I absolutely bore the ears off you talking about calisthenics, because quite frankly, I could talk for years about it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I would love to see any training clips that you have, or obviously if you have any questions, you can drop them down below. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video and I will catch you guys in the next one.